Hey there. Welcome to the Pine Island Experience podcast. I'm Joanna Anderson with my husband, Trygve. Each of our episodes will be conversations with fellow Pine Islanders.
The goal of our podcast is to share with you our experiences, what we have found to be fun, and what makes the Pine Island experience so unique.
Of course, I became a big fan of Randy White here. I remember reading his books when he's describing Cabbage Key or Tarpon Road Marina and all the places on San Juan Captiva. Like, I've been there. I know where he's talking about. So my two favorite authors are Randy and John Grisham, and my books are sort of a cross. It's got the legal bend, but they're all set here locally. And I've put my own love of history, so I always try to incorporate local history into the books.
That's John D. Mills, author of the Pine Island Sound Mysteries. In this conversation, John shares how his life on the water and in the courtroom shaped his storytelling, and why our island community continues to inspire every twist in his novels. Stay with us as we talk about the real history behind his books, his newest release, Captiva, Coven, and what keeps his heart anchored to Pine Island Sound. And now, here's John. John D. Mills has joined us today.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
You're an attorney and an author in the area. We're so happy you're here. Welcome.
Well, thanks. I love to come on to Pine Island. It's my favorite place to be. And
You've seen a lot here.
I have.
And I know you grew up fishing in the Pine Island Sound.
Yep.
Could you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up here?
Three interesting stories about my history growing up here. My earliest is coming out fishing in Pine Island. My grandfather, Dawson McDaniels, who was a longtime tax collector, and my uncle, Frank Daniels, who owned South Marine Supply, a wholesaler. They had the Ponta Blanca fish shack from 72 to 82. So growing up, I would come out to Pine Island. They both kept their boat at Four Winds Marina. Back then, the boat barn was on the opposite side of the little harbor, and the ship store was on Jug Creek, and they actually had a boat ramp there. And the commercial boats had covers where Lazy Flamingo is. I've been coming to that marina forever. And we'd go out for the weekend. But we lived in town. So the story I tell people, we'd come on Pondella and pull on to Pine Island Road. And between Pondella and Matlacha, I might see 3-4 houses. Remember, Cape Coral was all swampland, so it was plowed. It was totally flat. A few small twiglets of trees, but you'd go and you look a mile, oh, they built a house over there, and go another mile, like, oh yeah, there's that house, but literally see 5 houses between Pondella and Matlacha. Oh. And that's how much it's grown. And then I grew up in East Fort Myers by Palm Beach Boulevard hits I-75. More Shores is the name of it. And they started building I-75 when I was in middle school. So by 8th grade, they had the bridge across the river, but it wasn't open to traffic. So my friend and I broke through the bridge and broke through the construction zone, and statute of limitations expired. Statute of limitations expired, so I'll confess to my crime as a juvenile. So we broke through the construction zone and we walked to the very top of the I-75 bridge in our skateboards, and we started to skateboard down.
No.
And we made it maybe 100 feet and hit a rock, and I rolled the rest of the way down. So that was I had road rash on I-75 as a 8th grader.
Before anybody had.
And then they opened. And then when I started to drive when I was 16, from I-75 at Daniels Road, it was a dirt road from I-75 up to the railroad track where Metro is. And I know that because I was drag racing when I was 18, and I ran into a ditch, and my dad came and had to get me and pull the car out, and I was grounded for a month. So
you must have been a handful growing up.
I was. My dad was an Auburn graduate and came down here and married my mom, who was a church lady. And people always ask, how in the world did you parents ever get together? And I theorize it must have been a really cold night. I'm not sure. Very different.
But we'll never go over the Palm Beach I-75 bridge without thinking of that story.
I live in North Fort Myers now, so I go over it 3 or 4 times a week, and I chuckle every time I go across the bridge, thinking about my road rash and my cockiness, thinking I could skateboard down a construction zone.
You've spent a lifetime fishing in the Pine Island Sound.
I have.
What is it that calls you back?
One is the most obvious. It's like one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's the best fish in the world. People come here, the same thing that everybody says. But for me, I make my living with my mind, and, Monday through Friday, I'm writing, or I'm talking, or I'm reading. And I think going out on the water, and don't have a boat now, but I had a boat for a long time. But whenever I go out in the boat, it reminds me of my younger days on the water, number one. Number two, I use my hands, my eyes, and my experience of fishing, and it uses a different part of my brain. I don't know, it triggers something in me that makes me happy, but it also makes me make some bad decisions. I've made a few mistakes when I'm fishing. Let me give you an example. Have you ever felt the fin on a 14-foot hammerhead shark at the top?
No.
I have. Almost died, but I did it. So when my first book came out, Reasonable Necessary, which was about a bomb blowing up on a charter boat in Boca Grande and diving, looking for all the remnants of the crime scene, some people found some evidence, but got attacked by old Hitler, which I don't know if you've heard about that, but that was after World War II. There's supposedly the 25-foot hammerhead that went through there and ate all the tarpon, and there's still legends of old Hitler. And so old Hitler made an appearance in my book. So right after my book came out, I was going tarpon fishing in my 18-foot boat, and it was during the week, and I had a friend that was supposed to go with me, and he canceled last minute. But I'm like, I'll go by myself. So it was a Wednesday or Thursday, and during tarpon season, I was out in Costa looking for some tarpon, and I couldn't find any, but I had big greenbacks as bait that I'd cast netted. So I'm driving along the beach looking for tarpon, and I see this hammerhead shark going at like a vector where I was going. So I intersected in front of him, and I threw my bait out in front of him and ran real fast, and the hammerhead turned and followed the shark right up. And I was an 18-foot center console boat. So I wound up, and the shark followed, and he went right by the boat. And my boyhood curiosity, I wonder what that shark fin feels out. So I reached out and tweaked the top of that. I was an 18-foot boat, and it was 13, 14 feet. It was quite a little bit shorter than the boat, but not much. I tweaked the top of that hammerhead shark. I don't think he's ever been touched there before. No. In a nanosecond, his hammer hit my boat 3 times. Boom, boom, boom. Knocked me off balance. I was falling overboard and reached back and with my pinky and grabbed the wheel and leveled me from going in.
Oh my gosh.
And that saved me. And he circled the boat 3 times and looked at me, turned on the side and looked at me with one eye. And I all right, you're the man. I'm sorry. So I highly recommend not tweaking the fin of a 14-foot
It sounds like
hammerhead.
that Jaws.
Yeah.
We need a bigger boat. It was. Oh my gosh! Did you think after 3 circles? Did you think he was going to leave?
I didn't know what to do. It took me a while to breathe at that point. But I didn't learn my lesson because 5 years later, same situation. I was supposed to go snook fishing during the fall, and they were running through Mount Lachey and South Mount Lachey down by the power lines. Well, my buddy canceled, I'll go anyway. So I had fish, and I was looking for him, and I caught a couple snook, and I see this huge fish, and I realized, that's too big for a snook. It was a cobia, like a 6-foot cobia. So I had my snook rod, 17-pound test, 30-pound leader, and I throw it out, and the cobia, I set the hook. He towed the boat for probably 1.5 miles, about an hour. And I'm by myself, and I'm fighting him. And he gets up close to the boat. This is a 6-foot cobia, and I don't know how much you know about cobia. But
I know they're fast.
They're fast, and their back has barbs on the front, really sharp, where their fins are on the top. So I get him up close to the boat, and I can see the leader's wearing thin, and I'm pulling up, and I'm trying to net him, and the leader pops. And I'm on the front of the boat, up on the elevated portion, looking at, And I look at him and he pops, he just lays there and he's like right by the boat. And I've been fighting him for an hour and a half. And I'm like, well, I can't lose this cobia. So I jumped out of the boat on top of him and decided, my ego convinced me that I was going to wrestle this 6-foot cobia.
Now you're by yourself.
And I'm by myself. So I jumped on top of this cobia who decided to wake up, and he thrashed. And when he thrashed, the horn got my neck, missed my aorta by like maybe a half an inch. And I was bleeding. And then he knocked water, and I got choked on water and had to spit up water, and he swam away. And I went to the boat back and climbed in the ladder, and the blood going down my neck. I guess that goes back to my childhood. Like, I didn't want to lose the fish.
Oh.
But I think I need to learn because I'm too old to do that now.
Well, when your buddies say they can't make it, I would not go out alone, right? That's what happens.
I've been a bit of a loner all myself.
So that's what brings you out there.
That's what brings me out there. The back to the hunter-gatherer in my brain. I want to gather a fish and eat it. It always tastes better when you catch it yourself.
Those are exciting stories.
Well, thanks. Glad you like it. It proves my love of Pine Island and fishing, and also proves I'm known to make a few bad decisions in my life.
Well, you've been a prosecutor and a defense attorney. Now, I don't know if that's common that you go.
It's actually very common.
Okay.
You get out of law school, and if you want to be a litigator, many times you become a prosecutor or a public defender because you get a lot of trials at that point. And that's what I wanted to do, is be a litigator. So I prosecuted for a year. Then I left and worked with Dewey Mockler and Frank Porter. Dewey was a divorce lawyer. Frank did divorce and criminal. He's now our chief judge of the circuit and actually lives here in Pine Island. And I worked with them for 3 years. And then I've been on my own since August 1 of 93, doing criminal and family law. And I use my experience, 36 years of litigating in Lee County courtrooms. So my books have bad, nasty divorces and/or murders and attacks, and so I use my experience in the courtroom and my love of Pine Island sound to try to put the history and wrap them around the murders in the books.
Well, and that was part of my question was how has it shaped the realism in your thrillers? I mean, you really know both sides.
Well, that's right. I've know both sides, and I've been fishing buddies with a lot of judges, and I've heard them talk about things candidly. So having been a prosecutor and a defense lawyer and a divorce lawyer, I've basically sat in every table in the courtroom. You see things with your cases, you see things with other cases, and people ask me like, where do you get the ideas for your book? I'm like, well, 3 places. One, the courthouse, because truth is much stranger than fiction. What you see in the courthouse with different cases is it's amazing what people do to each other. So I see it at the courthouse, number 1. And then number 2, I go to happy hour at the veranda, or as the lawyers call it, courtroom V.
A lovely place.
A lovely place, a lot of history and all the stories there. And then number 3, I go to fishing tournaments, and you hear a lot of good stories at fishing tournaments.
That's funny. Well, that was another question I had. How does this spark your story ideas? You just explained that. So you already know the questions ahead of time.
Oh, did I? I gave somebody a bribe. I was hoping to get a heads up on them.
And you've seen the best and worst in people.
Oh, that's for true.
How has that experience helped you make believable motives and conflicts? I mean, are you taking notes during these and say, I'm going to write about that? Or
I don't specifically take notes during cases. What I have done over the years is I'll be at a fishing tournament or at a bar or a party, and someone will tell a joke or someone will tell a story. And I'm like, that would be good in a book. And so I carry business cards in my wallet. So I'll pull out my wallet, write a business card, and take out a pen and write down a few notes. And the next morning, sometimes they look good, sometimes they don't. But I always collect them. Different people have different perspectives, young, old, different parts of the country, different races, and you hear things and people describe events that you hadn't thought of in a certain way. And when I'm having my books edited, I always have different people's different ages, different education, different parts of the country, because different people see different things. But the stories, I hear different stories, and then try to imagine different things. And then, of course, I try to weave in the local history as part of my book. So I, have the creative license to do that. I've always been a bit cynical, but doing the job I do, I've become even more cynical over the years. So about 20 years ago, I invented this saying in my perspective on life. Most people don't like it. Some people think it's amusing, but it's served me well. And that is, assume the worst about people. And if you're surprised, at least it'll be a pleasant one. So doing what I do, I have seen the worst and the worst. I've seen some good things, but it's amazing how more people do bad things than more people do good things. It's sadly, that's human nature. I do criminal defense and I do divorce work, and everyone's like, what's your divorce story like? Well, everybody loves a good divorce story as long as it's not theirs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those must be sad.
It does. And, whether it's the man, whether it's the woman, there's just sad stories, and people get angry and vindictive, and it's amazing what they do to each other, the good, bad, and the ugly. So I try to use that experience when writing an entertaining novel. And people read a novel, they don't want to read a Bible story or a kid's story. They want to be entertained. So they murder, lust, theft, all the good sins. People want to be entertained when they read a book. So I try my best to entertain bad people, good people, and ones in the middle trying to figure out who did what.
And you get to learn a little history too.
And you do.
Local history.
You do get a little history. As you can tell from my books and us talking, I am a history buff, and I love studying history. So a little trivia, my last book, Captiva, Coven, there's 2 murders. In the second murder, the murder weapon is a Ring doorbell.
Really?
Yes.
Well, what got you interested in writing?
Well, I was always a big reader when I was a kid. My family's nickname for him is the loner. There'd be a Christmas dinner or Easter dinner, and I'd be in the room by myself reading a book. So I always loved to read. I was a finance major, and my dad was an insurance adjuster and a paralegal, and he wanted me to get, a traditional job. So I never thought about being a writer, but then had all these experiences in law, and I loved John Grisham. A little trivia about his books. His first book was A Time to Kill, the first book he wrote, and then The Pelican Brief, and then The Firm. So A Time to Kill and The Pelican Brief, he self-published. So he did that. So he sold all those. And then another little trivia, he wrote The Firm, which got traction, and everyone bought it and bought up all the rights. And they were tweaking it and cleaning it up. And then Tom Cruise had a movie fall through. So the movie, The Firm, actually came out before the book, The Firm. And of course, he took off from there. So back to his first book, A Time to Kill. So my first wife was from a small town about an hour south of Memphis called Hernando, Mississippi. John Grisham was a lawyer there in North Mississippi and Memphis. He is licensed in both Mississippi and Tennessee. He was working on a case there in Hernando, similar facts to A Time to Kill. He, of course, made it a better story, but it was based on actual events that happened there in Hernando. So they started filming, I think that was the third movie. So it was The Firm, then The Pelican Brief, and then I think A Time to Kill. I think that was the third movie. They started filming A Time to Kill there in Hernando, where the bad guy's family lived. The bad guy's family burnt the movie set down twice. So they filmed half the movie in Hernando and then moved an hour south to Jackson and finished filming it. So I had learned all that history that I just described. My ex-wife and I were dating, and I was going there at Hernando. So we got married there, and you had to get your license in Mississippi. So you had to go down to the town courthouse. It was a small town, kind of like LaBelle, about that size. So you walk into the courthouse, and there's a picture of the Hernando County Bar Association, like 10 lawyers. And there's like a 10, 12-year-old picture of John Grisham. I'm like, well, he doesn't look that special. If he can do it, I can do it. And so that was like the first idea I wanted to write. And then, of course, I became a big fan of Randy White here. I remember reading his books when he's describing Cabbage Key or Tarpon Road Marina and all the places on San Juan Captiva. Like, I've been there. I know where he's talking about. So my two favorite authors are Randy and John Grisham, and my books are sort of a cross. It's got the legal bend, but they're all set here locally. And I've put my own love of history, so I always try to incorporate local history into the books.
So that's how you got your start.
That's how I got my start.
So when you start a new book, what comes to you first? I mean, do you develop the characters or the overall plot, or how do you kind of go about creating the book?
So I've written 9, and 8 of the 9 have this same formula. I like, all right, I want to set it here, and I want to have a crazy murder happen in this area and do all that, and I want to incorporate this history. And so I start the old-fashioned way, a yellow tablet with a pen, and I do an old-fashioned handwritten outline, 10, 15 pages. And then I'll work on that, maybe do a second. And then I'll think about it and all the different things and talk to some people. What do you like? What do you don't? And try to get what people think might be interesting. And listen, and I just kind of let it gel for a couple months and like, okay, I got an idea. So I take the outline and then I'll sit, and it's the loneliest thing I've ever done in my life. Sit in front of a computer and create. Absolutely the loneliest thing I've ever done in my life. Everybody thinks it's the romantic writing, it's the candles and the low light and sipping a cocktail. No, that's like maybe on the editing portion, but the writing, it's so hard to take from what's in your brain down to your finger and make it entertaining and develop the characters and all that. So I start with the old-fashioned handwritten outline, and then I'll do more detailed, and I might take a few quotes. Remember I told you about those business cards? I'll bring out my shoebox of business cards and organize them like, all right, I can do that in chapter 2 or chapter 3. And then I get to know the characters as I'm writing. So I'll do like a rough draft of a more detailed outline for each chapter. And then, of course, as I'm doing that, then I try to think of the backstories and the plots and do all that. And then I start actually writing, and I'll go through and write a first draft, which usually takes a year. And then I'll have a group of people read it. And the first draft, I'm more interested in like, what do you like, what you don't like, what makes sense, what doesn't, what would you like to know more? And then I'll do usually a fairly major rewrite. And then I'll get different people to read the second draft, and I'm more interested in syntax and spacing and all the spelling errors that spell check doesn't fix. And then I'll have a third people kind of polish it and finish it. So that was the 8 books. But my favorite story about writing is my number 6 book, The Hooker, the Dancer, and the Nun. That one has a whole different history. So, of course, we've all seen how social media has developed. So I got on Facebook in 2009, and I didn't have much use for Facebook until I saw the movie about the Facebook founder.
Oh, Mark Zuckerberg.
The one with Zuckerberg, and what was the movie? It wasn't Facebook. It was
The Social Network,
the social
or something
network,
like
the
that.
Social Network. So I saw how that could help your business. So after seeing the movie at the theater, I went home and joined Facebook the next day. So fast forward a couple weeks later, I'm going fishing, and the lady I'm going fishing with is a court reporter, longtime friend, and we've fished forever. And then she had 2 of her girlfriends. One had just broken up with her boyfriend, and one had been broken up for 2 years. And so they wanted to go fishing too. Like, sure, the more the merrier. So I was the designated driver. So we all met at my house in Fort Myers. At that time, I was trailering my boat. So we trailered my boat to Pineland Marina, and we drove through Matlacha. And the Matlacha hookers had all kinds of events or something was going on. And of course, all the girls like, I want to be a hooker. I want to be a hooker. And so they were laughing about that. So we drove and put in at Pineland, and we fished. And I was a designated driver. They opened up the bottle of rum and they started drinking the rum and fishing all day. Then they started man bashing. And the one girl that had just broken up with her boyfriend, she was dancing to music all day, and her favorite song was "I Like Big Butts." So I think we'd heard that song like 15 times that day. She's on the dancing the whole time. And the other girl, she had been broken up for 2 years, but her boyfriend hadn't dated anybody, and she was lamenting that there's no good men out there and all that. And by the end of the day, she's just like, I think I'm going to give up. I think I'm just going to be a nun. And so they laughed like, all right, go be a nun. So they had their second bottle of rum as we were driving home. I was still the designated driver. So I drive them home, and they go back to their houses and go on Facebook. And I'd taken some pictures of them with their catch of the day. And I said something very generic along the lines, the girls had a good day fishing. And they're like holding up their fish. And I posted it on Facebook. And so my court reporter friend, who I was Facebook friends, she's like, "You're a writer. You got to be able to write something better than that on Facebook. That's all you can come up with." And I'm like, wow. And at that point, I think I was maybe on catching, they were gone, but I made myself a couple cocktails. And so I'm like, wow, the gauntlet has been thrown down. So I'm looking at them, and my court reporter friend always liked to fish. And I'm like, all right, well, she can be the hooker because she likes to hook the fish. And the nun, she decides she's going to be a nun. And the girl, she can be the dancer. So I edited my Facebook post, "The hooker, the dancer, the nun on the boat today." And of course, they love that. They're like, "That should be the title of your next book." I'm like, "It is." So I picked the title before I ever started writing the book. So that one's a little different.
Now, when you run into readers, do you get comments like, "I know exactly where that's at," or, "I remember going there, visiting there," kind of thing?
I get that from a lot of the locals and the winter people. That makes me happy because that's who I'm trying to reach out to. But then a lot of people that have moved here either don't know the history or it's called a different name, whatever. So, but I'm like, the ones that don't know say, "I would like to go there." Like, "Well, let me tell you where to go." And I'll plot. And that's the nice thing about Google Maps. You can do that. And that's like one of my happy times when I get people asking me those type of questions.
What do you hope readers take away from your novels?
I like surprise endings. We had talked about that earlier before we started taping. So I hope when people read my book that they're entertained while they're reading it, number one. And number two, surprise, because I like surprise endings. So I try really hard to have a surprise ending in my book. And then number two, I like gently educating people about Pine Island and the history we have here. It's not nearly as much detail as the Northeast or Europe or, but we have some very neat history and it's very unique and a lot of people don't know about it. So I like to educate people about the history we have here while hopefully entertaining them with a murder mystery. And then I also, my books are a form of advertising. I've had clients come in and want to hire me for cases and say, "We haven't met before, and I heard you're a good lawyer, but I read your book. And if you can get that guy off, I want to hire you." And that is like the greatest compliment.
Sure.
If somebody wants to get into writing, what advice would you give them?
The short answer is read and research and watch with YouTube. There's all kinds of good learning videos. Watch and read as much as possible. But I think the best advice I ever got was at a seminar, because it's, as I mentioned earlier, staring at a computer screen and creating is the loneliest thing I've ever done. It's frankly one of the hardest things I've ever done too. But one of the seminars I went to is like, it's overwhelming to write a novel. When you sit down, don't think you're going to write a novel. Just think you're going to write like 15 short stories. So write a story about a character and about this character. And maybe these characters meet, so write another. And that was the best for me, the way my brain works. That was the best advice I ever got because I can do a short story. I mean, I talk about someone's background and character development. And so it's someone that wants to write, my advice to them is don't think about writing a novel. Think about writing 15 short stories. And after you're done with the short stories, make them all meet each other and combine it all together.
And similar to
what they tell you in business. If you have a very large project, it can seem overwhelming. So the recommendation is break it into small tasks. Because I think when it's large, to your point, on a large novel, that's got to be a daunting task.
It is. And my books, frankly, I've never, the magic number for an English professor to consider a book a novel is 80,000 words. So you got to, that's like the magic in the traditional publishing industry. To be a novel, it's got to be a minimum of 80,000 words. My fifth novel, The Trophy Wife Divorce, has 82,000. All the other books have between 62 and 70. And what I decided was, I don't want to write the great American novel. I want to write an entertaining beach read. So my books are beach reads. They're shorter than the traditional novels, and I like it that way. I think more people like reading beach reads than they do reading, great American novels that make you go, that bore you. So I try to have the murders, keep people interested in who done it, number one, of course, number two. And then, of course, most of your characters have their own motivations, the good, the bad, and the ugly of trying to preserve their own selves, that it's not necessarily related to solving the murder. And then, of course, a murder might be when the cops got involved, but might be a lot of side crimes that people might be trying to hide. So I think the most interesting characters are the ones that have the most flaws. So most of my characters have a lot of flaws.
Beth Mancini and Frank Powers.
Frank Powers.
Now, I'm sure people will get hooked on those two characters and want to read the whole series.
They do. So let me pause that answer. Start back with my original book. Books 1, 2, and 3, Reasonable, Necessary, The Manatee Murders, and The Objector. The main character was Lee County Sheriff's Detective Doug Shearer. And that name is a combination of my two mentors, John Shearer, who's a retired attorney and judge, who's still with us, and Doug Wilkinson, who's a court administrator who passed a while back. But when I started back in 00, I combined their two names because they were my two mentors. Mm-hmm. So books 1, 2, and 3, the main character is Detective Doug Shearer. My fourth book, Sworn Jury, that was about a murder at the Edison home. And they find a dead lawyer after a big formal tied up naked in a Model T Ford with 2 bullets in his heart and a smile on his face. I found out people like dead lawyers. They're very entertained by dead lawyers. So I've had a few more dead lawyers in my books. That book, the main character it was a legal thriller. It all takes place during a 1-week trial, Lee County Courthouse, with backstory on the islands and some other things going on. But it's a legal thriller. That was different than my first 3, which was a murder mystery. So I made that character a criminal defense lawyer, and I knew everybody raised their eyebrows with him. So I made him exactly opposite of me. Tall, thin, dark-haired, compassionate, and still in love with his ex-wife. So I stayed with him for just that book. And then book 5 is when The Trophy Wife Divorce is when I brought in Beth Mancini, female divorce attorney, and her longtime boyfriend, Frank Powers, who's a prosecutor. And I've used them for The Trophy Wife Divorce, Hooker Dancer the Nun, Pineland Gold, Cayo, Costa, and Captiva, Coven. So they're, from books 5 through 9, they're the main characters. What I did in Pineland Gold, my main character from the first 3, Detective Doug Shearer, he has a bad time in the sheriff's department and retires at the end of book 3. Book 4, he makes a cameo as a private investigator. He has a small part. He's not in book 5, but book 6, I bring him back as a private investigator. And he has a bigger role. So that was fun to combine all the books into that. And then in Cayo, Costa, he's also a private investigator. Comes back for that. So I tried to tie the books together. But books 5 through 9, that was a nice vehicle, having the 2 main characters, the female divorce attorney dating the male prosecutor. I could use my experience as prosecutor, defense lawyer, and divorce lawyer in those. That's what I've I've used up to now.
Do you see another story like that in the series?
I do. I don't have any immediate plans, but I want to try to incorporate a Pine Island history. I haven't decided which part I'm going to use. I think I might have one more in me.
Now, have we missed anything that we haven't discussed?
I think we went through the different ones, and I think my illustration of my two stupid choices about trying to touch large fish that I shouldn't is probably an indicative of some of my characters.
And you shouldn't have done anything else after that. Well, except for the skateboarding before that, but your parents, wow.
Oh, my parents have passed, and I never told them the story about either one of those, the shark or the cobia.
What do you think the best resources are to learn more about you and your books? Would you social media, your internet?
I have my attorney website and I have my author website, and that's pineislandsoundmysteries.com. So I have some good picture galleries of all the different places that are described in my books, some of the history of the island. So Pine Island Sound Mysteries is a good place to start. I am on Facebook. You can look me on Facebook. I have my personal account and my author account.
Imagine the captions are wonderful on Facebook.
I've learned since 2009.
Lesson.
Yeah, after the hooker dance to the nun, I try my best. I try to have memes of the day and jokes of the day and try to have some entertainment that way. But social media has changed the whole way people market books, how lawyers market themselves, and frankly, every business out there. It's changed.
Now, it's on Amazon, of course. But
It's
I mean,
on Amazon.
but I heard you also sell them in...
They have them at the Pine Island Museum. They sell them there. They sell them at Tarpon Lodge, Cabbage Key, and Four Winds Marina. They have them, and they're available on Amazon through either paperback or by Kindle.
Thank you very much.
All right. I appreciate you having me out here.
It was wonderful.
Have a good one.
We hope you enjoyed our Pine Island Experience podcast. If you have any ideas for us, people to interview, or any comments, please feel free to email them to us at pineislandexperience@gmail.com. That's pineislandexperience, all one word, @gmail.com. Don't forget to like us, and you may subscribe to this podcast using all the major catchers like Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks again for listening, and remember, island life is a constant vacation. We'll see you on the next podcast.